This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and our personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have similar ambition to progress in business and personal growth. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. Today, we'll be keeping it brief. We've had some scheduling challenges, and in an effort to stick to our one podcast per week goal, we're working with the time we've got, and we'll just be giving a more detailed business and life update in lieu of a philosophical discussion. So let's start with the business update. What did you do this week?
Business this week, as you've heard throughout the week, I encountered various issues when it came to ads and running ads. I may have briefly touched on it in the last podcast, but probably not actually.
No, I think
it happened after.
I think it happened after.
Yeah, it happened
So
after.
let's
It
take it
Monday, and we filmed on Sunday. So, from the top, last week on Monday, I was running my ads as normal. I didn't release anything new that Monday. Usually, I do. And
Why didn't you release anything new?
Because I was working on diving into other winning ads to try and figure out how their creatives work, how I can create better ads in the future, just kind of digging into that sort of stuff. And so I decided not to release anything new, just continue running things as is. And then that Monday afternoon, I saw that one of my ad accounts was unlinked from me because it's run through an ad agency. So I messaged them and they say it got flagged for unknown reasons by Meta, which is relatively common. And it was under review. And so there wasn't much I could do. I didn't have access to the account. I couldn't file a complaint. I couldn't, the only thing I could do is work with the Meta representative that I have through the ad agency, as well as my actual ad agency, to try and get it recovered, as well as get a new one issued as soon as possible.
So if you want to flag another account, can you do that?
What?
If you want to go flag someone else's account, can you do that? How does it get
No,
flagged?
it gets flagged through Meta's algorithm. And by and large, from a majority of the ad agencies I've talked to, as well as individuals who work through Meta that I've talked to, it is completely randomized.
What the fuck?
Almost completely randomized. There are small things that you can do in order to increase your chances of not being flagged, or decrease your chances of being flagged, but it's still largely very random. Especially once you have an established account, at that point, it's incredibly random.
Why? I wonder why that is. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have a reason to take down someone's account, then what's the point in taking it down? It's not like they're being safe about, like, oh, maybe they're up to no good, or maybe they're marketing.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing for me is, like, the ads didn't even change.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even post anything new.
Right.
That's the weird part. I really don't know. My only guess is, like, I hadn't changed spend or added anything for a week. And so maybe they saw that as, like, the account was just dead and running in the water, right? But, like, at the same time, I have no evidence to make that claim. And also, like, am I just supposed to randomly change the amount I spend on ads every 2 days so that you guys know I'm, like, still alive? Like,
Yeah.
how does, like, my credit card's not declining.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the money's still coming through.
As long as the money's coming through, why do
Yeah.
you care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, I'm not running, this is something I'll get into later, but I'm not running any gray hat or black hat content, which is, you have white hat, gray hat, and black hat. And white hat is like your standard, like, run of the mill ads, toys, puppies,
Yeah.
random stuff like that. Gray hat is like, Manscaped ads might be considered gray hat because they're not overtly sexual, but they have like some lean in that direction. Right. And so
Condoms. It's not like a
condoms
dildo.
directly, and dildos directly would be like black hat, or like erectile dysfunction, stuff like that would be considered black hat.
What about
content.
Blue Chew, the gum?
That would probably be gray hat because it's like not directly.
A penis.
It's not like direct. You're not saying directly what it's tackling, but everyone looking at the ad knows what it's tackling, right? So that's kind of like gray hat. And so, I'm not running even any content like that or anything even close to that kind of content.
Right.
And I've read through the Meta ad policies before, because when my account first got flagged, I wanted to understand why. And so I read through their entire policy page. And so I'm familiar with what I'm allowed to run, not allowed to run, and what I'm allowed to do in terms of advertisements, like, no before and after pictures, no like excessive exaggerations, and no guilt tripping, hardcore guilt tripping and stuff like that. Like, I understand these things, and none of my ads were doing that. And also, I didn't add any ads that day that would have done that either way. And I have zero ads I've ever posted have ever been flagged after a review. I've never had anything locked up in that specific account before at all. And so it's a kind of a more random system,
It's weird
you
because
know?
I see real firearms labeled as Nerf toys on Facebook Marketplace all the time, and that doesn't get flagged. Like a very clear like fucking 6-shooter on Facebook Marketplace, and they're like Nerf toy, and it's like that is a firearm, sir. And all that is left up while the ads are taken down, which is silly because
Yeah.
Facebook doesn't make any money off of you selling shit on Marketplace, but they
No.
do make money off of you spending money on ads. So like,
Yeah.
why bother taking that down if it's not lewd?
I'm uh I'm really not sure, and I don't think anyone really concretely understands it. I've talked to a lot of different people about it, and even, multiple different ad agencies with their protocols and stuff like that, like even they like sometimes really don't know. Even ad agencies that have been around for over a decade don't really know.
So, of the people that you've talked to, has anyone gotten it back from review? Like, or do they
No.
release it?
So
Nobody?
my ad account is still under review. And I don't have any information from Meta of if it will be able to be recovered or if it will at what point that would even happen
Right.
or when I'd even know. So there's no determined timeline for it at all. This afternoon, so 1 week later, I got my new ad account issued to me that I can run ads on. In that time, I also got a subscription with a different ad agency that has some slightly different it's a slightly different structure. And so they don't charge me based on the amount I spend. They just charge me a flat rate monthly. And then they also have some other guarantees like if your account gets locked, you get an immediate replacement. So so right with my current ad agency, I had to play a waiting game essentially while they got it to me.
Yeah.
They have an instantaneous replacement, and they have a couple other things and different tools that you can access and stuff like that, which I'll get into a little bit. But I got a subscription with that ad agency. That's what I'm going to be running my ads through right now is my monthly subscription one.
Yeah.
And my old agency doesn't charge me a monthly subscription. They only charge based on the amount that I spend.
So you can pick and choose.
So what I'll do is I'll just use them for testing products
Got it.
because it's easy enough to just test a product, spend a couple weeks to spend on it. And then if it doesn't work, just, remove it, right? And I only pay when I actually use it. So I can have those ad accounts linked, ready to go all the time, and then just throw something on when I need it.
Right.
So that's what I'll be doing on that end of things. Right now I'm waiting for my transfers to go through to the new ad agency. I had to transfer money from my bank account to them as well. And so just waiting for that to go through and so that I can start running again. It should be tomorrow, so I should be able to start running Wednesday at midnight, essentially.
That's good.
Yeah.
At least you got something back on track. And then a fix for if that goes wrong too, and that you get a new account right away.
Yeah, and it sucks because, it's like, something that bugs me about this whole situation too is I hate how to solve these kinds of issues, you just jump from thing to thing and you have to have, like, multiple different backups, and
Yeah.
it's like,
You have to
fucking
start
why?
over.
Like, you guys, I'm a real person, you have my ID in terms of,
Right.
like, Meta,
Right.
it's like, I'm legit, I'm real, like, why are you making me jump through these hoops? I'm spending 10K a month on your platform.
Yeah.
Like, chill.
Dude, eventually this podcast will have enough people watching it that we could make a direct message to Mark.
Yeah, no, I told myself back in February when I had 2 or 3 accounts locked up that Wizard Man would be my number 1 target, and now he's, like, definitely my number 1 target.
Okay, so direct line to Mark and the NSA. Hey everyone, this is just facetious.
Right,
That's
exactly.
so funny.
But yeah, no, I wanna get rich enough to buy Facebook and fix it.
Dude, you could convince Elon to do it. And then he could be like, Elon, Facebook is so flawed.
Sorok and Elon just fix
You know what's so
fix
wild
social media.
is that Facebook has so much data from their users that you'd think they would be like the most effective like advertisement targeting agency ever.
Yeah.
And yet
Well, they are, but the problem
Only
is
when it
that only when it works.
right. And it's weird because it's like wait, hang on. Didn't in the Rogan podcast he was on, wasn't he talking about this where he was like, "Oh yeah, like our AI program just like takes stuff down, we don't know why." Didn't he mention that? I'd have to go back and re-listen.
I think what he claimed in that is that it was doing that when they were going through the COVID period through censorship.
Oh, that's
stuff like
right.
that, and then they fixed it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. Did they fix it?
I don't know.
Right.
If it's improved, then they could definitely improve
They
his
probably
advertising.
fixed some stuff, right? They
Yeah.
probably don't flag like COVID posts anymore, right? But there's still obviously a lot of flagging issues because everyone is still having this problem. It's not just me.
Who else is selling your product? Are there other stores? Are you the,
There's a couple of Chinese stores, Chinese competitors, but
are they bigger stores than you? Can you tell?
they're running you can tell they are running more ads, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're running more sales or they're getting more sales because it's about, their shipping times because they're a Chinese essentially it's the supplier who's put together a store directly to sell their product to the marketplace. And then they rip other people's ads and then just run them as their own under a paid account on Facebook, right? Which is interesting why that doesn't get flagged. But
Well, if I were an employee for Meta
yeah,
and I was approached by a kind international businessman with like a fat stack of cash,
right.
and he was like, "This ad account is giving me problems." Ad accounts get taken down all the time for no reason. This one could get taken down for no reason, and you could get a stack of money, right? I wouldn't take it because I'm a morally sound person, but I can totally understand why a Meta person would take that.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a big fish, little fish thing at play where they're just like, can you buy out the competition by just cutting them out at the knees?
I'm not sure. I think it's kind of one of those things that as you get big enough, slowly people surround you that can solve your problems. It's
Yeah.
like when we've talked about this before, probably off camera, but it's not something that needs to be off camera. It's just like, as you become more wealthy, suddenly you get introduced to lawyers that can solve, little problems here and there financially for you, or like little stuff here and there, and like whatever, just like frugal crap, or like do your taxes for you and help you out with the codes and
It's
stuff
Joel.
like that. Yeah, exactly. Joel's tax agency, contact him. But, like, I think it's kind of a factor of as you get bigger, you start to get introduced to more and more people that can solve the little problems for you in the background.
Like
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I've just been dealing with that aspect of things. It sucks because it feels like every time I go after one of these issues, it just takes like more money and more time.
Right.
It's just, it's frustrating to an extent, but I get that that's kind of the name of the game right now. And so I'm continuing to play it and I'm excited to get my ads finally back up and running, which is great. I still have access to my original post and my original post IDs. So I'll still be able to run the ads with the previous engagement that they had. So it's not like I'm starting completely from square one, at least on the post side. The ad account will still have to gather all the data again. But hopefully if the ads are good enough and Meta is able to push it out, it will do relatively well.
Well, ideally, if you had winning ads before, even if it shows it to the wrong audience, some of the audience will still be there. So it should learn quicker, right? Because you have better ads. If you throw a piece of shit out there, it doesn't matter how much data you have. It's not going to work, right?
Exactly. So that's the hope. It's just going to take a little bit of time and learning for it to get there. But, in for the long haul, so not too worried about it. I'm just hoping that this doesn't happen in like November.
Right.
I'm hoping that, because it's May right now, start of May, I can get my stuff sorted out and get it in a flow going and understand a few things. And I've learned a couple things through this process too that I'll share. But I'm just hoping I can get some solid foundation come, third and Q3 and Q4 of the year.
Can you get like 3 or 4 of these accounts running just in case one gets taken down?
So that's what I'm doing right now with my initial ad agency because they don't charge me a monthly subscription. I'm just getting a couple ad accounts issued and I'm just going to leave them there idle after I do a warm-up campaign on them to get them set and ready. And those will be my backup just in case.
Got it. That's good.
So that's kind of how I have it set up right now. The reason I'm doing my main product on the monthly subscription ad agency is because of the guaranteed instant ad account replacement if I need it, as well as they're a little bit more foundational with some larger brands as well. And they have a couple other access platforms. Like you can, they have some interesting integration when it comes to Meta support, as well as actually getting you a more foundational and solid account. For example, something that I'm looking into right now is buying a business manager. So you have your business manager within Facebook, and then you have your ad accounts. And then through your ad accounts, you run your different ad campaigns, which have your ad sets and your ads.
Right.
That business manager is also a source for being potentially flagged. I thankfully, knock on wood, have not been flagged at the business manager level yet, because that presents a whole nother slew of problems if that happens.
Right.
But what you can do is you can buy a business manager that's been previously used and has been flagged before and then recovered, because that strengthens it in the meta algorithm, as well as a business manager that has had some amount of spend through it over the course of multiple years. And so you can buy one of those business managers and use it as your own with your ad accounts on it. And apparently that strengthens the ad account from what people have seen as well. It strengthens it from being flagged. I don't particularly know why. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't understand why a business manager that was banned previously and then got reinstated would be stronger than one that has no history of being banned.
Right.
I don't know, but the data and the experience from other people suggests that it is a much stronger business manager to have.
Huh.
And so they're not terribly expensive. They're a few $100 a pop, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at that as an option maybe in the coming weeks. But money's definitely tight right now. I had some big bills to pay, between rent and all my utilities, and like I threw like 2,200 at the credit cards, just trying to keep them at like a normal level. So, just a lot of expenses. I burned my whole paycheck in like 4 minutes on Friday.
Yeah.
Just paying stuff. And so, that I gotta be mindful of that and kind of, weigh my options and be cautious in that sense.
Back to resourcefulness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, a little bit of that, but it's just for the time being, relatively temporary, and it's the start of the month, which is always kind of like a heavier hit for me because I just had all my bills at the end of the previous month, and so that kind of hits me a little bit harder.
Right.
As the month goes on, I'll rack back up, and then next month it will be down a little bit, but hopefully I'll get back into my flow of things again, and it will kind of settle out. So
Right.
that's what I'm hoping right now. That's kind of a basic rundown of the ad stuff, I would say. I've been doing a lot of research on the winning creatives, developing my own scripts. Right now I'm going with a kind of storyline theme. So I've run some ads that are more like catered to like review style with like kind of, they aren't exactly this, but they, I guess, emulate a bullet point style, like these are the benefits, right? Whereas I'm right now trying to incorporate a more story personalized style because I have so much user generated content to pull from at this point that I've paid for. I have enough to create storylines that are just from like one creator, because some creators did a really awesome job, gave me a ton of content, and so I can create a whole ad just with their content.
Right.
And so I'm kind of creating storyline content based on one creator, and then weaving in, the messaging in there and the benefits I want in there, but just kind of doing it more like a story style.
So walk me through like what's a story style?
So it'd be like, hey moms, I bought this for my kid and I didn't think much of it, but it's been really awesome at bedtime and we're really enjoying it at playtime, and he takes it on car rides with him and he really, really loves it. I'd super recommend it. I think they're running a sale right now. You guys can go check out the link. I dropped it down below. Right. That's like a brief version of a story. And it could include something like it's got almost 100 different songs, stories, and fables on it with different cards. And you can even record your own, which my son and I have been having a really fun time with. I super recommend it. I love it personally. And I just wanted to give it a shout out. So I linked it down below. And right, like an ad like that, that's more like personable.
And this is in contrast to a review where it's like, look how strong the plastic is. I've dropped it 4 times.
The review style might be like, hey moms, I just bought this little gramophone online and I just want to give you, or here are the top 3 reasons that I love it. 1, it's got almost 100 different song stories and fables on it, and you can choose whatever you want. Number 2, it's got DIY cards that you can record your own on. And number 3, it's super portable and easy to charge, and I love using it with my kid before bedtime. Check it out down in the link below. That might be like a bullet point style. So it's similar.
But the review one is more so glazing it, and then the story time is more so sharing.
It's like sharing a personal experience that someone can connect with rather than like oh, they're just kind of giving a review.
It's less of an advertisement and it's more of like a I'm just sharing a part of my day type.
Yeah. So I want to try that out because some of the winning ads that I looked at had that aspect to them.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to feel like you're getting sold to, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So
I have a good example later. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of the mindset that I've been approaching it with. So I generated 3 different scripts for each of my 2 products. So I have 6 scripts that I'm working to edit and revise right now, to put those ads out there.
Right.
And just going to try that angle of things, see
Yeah.
how it works because I've done multiple different iterations of my bullet point style ad,
Yeah.
and I've gotten into a really good spot where I think I'm pretty happy with it,
Mhm.
and it's done relatively well, but it hasn't done like exceedingly well.
Right.
And so I want to take what I've learned from that experience, take what I've learned from the hook messaging, or the hooks, the messaging, the call to actions, the type of footage that people like, what people want to see, and take those things that I've learned and incorporate them into a story style advertisement that doesn't feel like an ad, but
Right.
still includes a lot of the benefits that I had in my bullet point style ads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the approach I'm going with right now. And that I kind of came to through a lot of analysis of the, winning ads that I have access to and looking those over, reading them over, listening to them, rewriting those scripts, and then kind of pushing or changing them into my product and then running them through ChatGPT as
Right.
well to kind of help me in that sense and storyboarding them and looking at the content that I have and kind of coordinating. So it's a lot of like back end coordinating stuff, trying to figure out how do I mesh this in an effective way and put out an ad that is a reflection of what I've learned, but not a direct iteration of the stuff that has worked, but not worked quite as well as I want it to.
Right.
So that's kind of the approach that I've gone with the ad stuff,
Yeah.
in terms of research this
Yeah.
week.
Sweet. Making use of the time that you have off from actually running ads.
Yeah, and I thought about researching other products too, but I was like, my bandwidth right now is relatively high because I don't have ads running with data being fed back to me to analyze new stuff.
Right.
And I'm afraid that if I introduce a new product during this kind of slightly slower week, I'll be in a real pickle in 3 weeks when everything is running and active and I need to be analyzing everything all at the same time and creating iterations. And now I have 3 products,
Well,
plus, and 2 of those products at that point would be like completely almost brand new.
right. And you haven't done I have an account, it's working, it stops working, and I have a new account selling the same thing yet,
Mhm.
right? So if you change a variable, like you have a unique opportunity right now to do everything the same on the new account as on the old account, everything identical, and the only variable changing being the account itself, right?
Right.
So you can see exactly how big of an impact it is switching from one account to the other and see is that data that it learned actually like valuable or not, and
Yeah.
how you can quantify how valuable it is. But if you add another variable, then that kind of gets squandered, right?
Yeah, to some extent it can. Um,
But like if you straight swap, like run all the same ads that you did last week,
it's a
this
very good
week,
test.
right?
Yeah.
You can see how big of impact it has. Maybe it learns really quick and it's not a problem to switch ad. Like maybe it's a problem, but maybe it's not like a total deal breaker if your account gets flagged because it only takes 3 days to get back up and running with the same ad set again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been digging into this week.
Hmm.
And I actually had some ads here that I
Yeah.
wanted to show you. These are obviously not video ads; they're photo ads. And I could try to link these up in the podcast if I have the bandwidth for it this week. But I thought they were really cool. One of these has got 2 pieces of bread for the listeners on the podcast, and it's got 2 pieces of toast, and one of them is just a blank piece of toast, and the other one has a Nutella spread in the shape of a heart.
Hmm.
And the left picture says this is bread, and the right picture said this is breakfast. And I thought that was a really cute ad.
Can you fucking believe Nutella's marketing itself as a breakfast food? That's
Isn't that
wild.
wild? Yeah, yeah,
Chocolate for breakfast is a fucking otherworldly thing. But I mean, they sell like crazy. So
yeah.
why not?
And then the next one is a Tesla ad, and it's got like some stuff written above it about the 0 to 60 time. It says it takes 3.1 seconds to read this ad, and then that's the same time the Model S goes from 0 to 60,
Yeah,
right? And so I thought that was kind of a clever ad.
that is fun.
And then another one is Patron, I think. I don't know. I don't drink liquor, but
Patron is tequila.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Ad from
Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott.
yeah, it's kind of funny. And then this one I thought was fun.
It's a shot glass. Do you know why they're called shots? Why shot glasses are called
No.
shots? I saw this the other day. Let's see if I butcher it. It's because in like the old West, like the cowboy West, the price of one shot glass or like 2 ounces of whiskey was roughly the same as a case of 6 bullets for a revolver.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you could barter or change instead of the dollar amount. You could just give 6 shots for a shot of whiskey or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, the more you know.
So what's the ad? What's the next one?
The last one I got, I just screenshot a few that I thought were kind of cool. The last one is a Bible app ad, and it says 0 stars, would not recommend dash Satan. And I thought that was like a really clever way of marketing that. It was just like kind of unique and fun.
Dude, Mark Wahlberg has been marketing a Bible app lately, and I don't know anything about it.
Oh,
People are
Hallow,
memeing on.
I've been
Yes,
hearing
is
a
that it?
lot.
Dude, people have been memeing on Mark Wahlberg for it. I
Oh,
haven't seen
really?
any of the ads. It's come up like once, but I scrolled like past it because I'm not the target audience. But people are memeing on him about it. I don't.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of people have been marketing the Hallow app. I've heard it on like
Mhm,
almost every podcast I've been on, aside from like Joe Rogan,
mhm.
just everywhere. But yeah, ads go in and out. It depends on who's got money to spend on ads, is what it takes.
It
But
depends on if their accounts get taken down or not.
that's right, exactly. But I think, yeah, that pretty much covers my ad account side of things and what I've been working on, with developing my winning ads, developing new scripts, trying to work through some of the hurdles in terms of ad account and set myself up in a manner that protects me a little bit better than I have been protected in the future with having backup accounts and stuff like that, potentially purchasing a business manager. That's kind of like the broad level recap. Something else that we talked about gray hat and black hat briefly. And something else that's interesting is that people will actually get separate business managers, and they'll have one business manager where they run all of their ad accounts in, and then they'll have another business manager that just holds their assets, like their pixel data, which is like a part of the data that your ads use to run effectively.
Okay.
So like those data sets will be stored in a different business manager, and then that business manager will share that data with the business manager that runs your ad accounts. And so if your ad accounts and your business manager get locked up, you still don't have your data locked up. And so you could share that to a new business manager or whatever. And so people will protect themselves like that, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And so, just different stuff I'm looking at and looking into. But at the end of the day,
Do you buy a business manager from Facebook or from someone else?
from someone else.
Got it.
Facebook doesn't sell them directly.
Huh.
So you have to get like a reputable supplier and stuff
Right.
like that and kind of look at that sense. But that's kind of like the broad highlight overview of what my ad life has been like. And then one more thing, I'm so sorry. I hired over 25 creators for the new tablet product I'm running, and I got all of those shipped out. And so I should be getting content back within the next week or two at this point.
Cool.
So excited about that, getting that content back. But just pushing out as much as I can on the prep side of things while I wait for this ad account to get back to me, which now it is. So now I can run ads. And just kind of doing prep for ads, prep for content creation, sending out product to creators for them to make stuff, trying to set myself up better for the future, and just protecting myself from bans as best I can has been a majority of my week on the dropshipping side.
Got it.
So what is your business update for this week?
Okay. So I have about a page and a half, so I'm going to go kind of quick. Okay. So Grace and I are closing on a house. This is my first deal. This is Grace's second deal. I'm still not with the brokerage yet. So at this point, I'm kind of like distancing myself from the conversation in its entirety. And I'm more so like listening in than like talking to anybody, because before I'm not allowed to give real estate opinion, but I could still be at the inspections and I can still talk to the inspector and learn and stuff. Right.
Right.
But at this point, all of the work is being done with the buyer, the listing agent, and the lender. And those are more sensitive relationships that I'm not comfortable being a part of if I'm not licensed and a part of the deal. So I'm listening along, but I'm not actually giving any input or anything like that. So kind of taking a step back. At this point, we're past the inspection period, so we're pretty much locked in. The only reason this sale wouldn't go through is if the buyer cannot secure financing. So an example would be his lender backs out for some reason because his credit score takes a hit, or the property appraises low. And so like the selling price, let's say it's 500,000. If the property appraises at 480, the seller can say, well, I still want to stick to the 500,000. So you have to come up with 20 grand cash out of your ass. And if the buyer can't do that, they can't secure financing, they can't buy the house. And the sellers cannot back out for any reason unless they die. Right. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. The sellers have agreed to fix a few items that would have prevented insurance if they didn't get fixed before closing. There's one major repair and two minor repairs, as I have categorized them. Everybody has a different opinion, apparently. One of the minor repairs can't be fixed until after the current closing date. So we have to extend closing, right? So this presents an issue for pretty much everybody because the listing agent obviously wants to get the home sold as quickly as possible. The selling agents, or I'm sorry, the buying agents, Grace and I, want to get the whole home sold as quickly as possible. The buyer wants to take possession of the home as quickly as possible. But the lender is going to have to do more paperwork if we do not extend, if we stick with the current sale point, right? So there's pros and cons to extending the closing to past when this repair can be made, right? So there's two people that are really dictating this process. There's the appraiser who's going to come look at the house on behalf of the bank, and or actually, I think it's a county appraiser. So independent third party is going to come look at the house and say whether or not it's being sold for a fair price. They can either say, I would recommend not selling this house without this minor issue being repaired beforehand. The listing agent said that they spoke with the appraiser, and the appraiser said it's not going to be an issue. You can close on the house. It's a minor repair. Insurance will cover it for like 30 days. You can definitely get it repaired before then. No issue. We're going to, not jot it down. So the appraiser is one person. Then there's an underwriter who works for the mortgage loan officer. Originator. MLO is a mortgage loan originator, right? So the guy actually lending the money. There's an underwriter who goes to the property and acts as an appraiser for the mortgage people to make sure that the house is in the proper condition and that the investor isn't blowing their money, right? He can say the same thing where it's like, I'm not comfortable saying that this house is good to go without making this minor repair first, right? So the lender spoke to each of them, and eventually he was able to get them to say, oh, it's not a problem. Like, we can do it after closing, right? So then the only issue here is how do we actually get the money to swap hands, right? So there's two ways to do this. The first way is just to credit at closing. So like, let's say this minor repair costs, I'm going to pick a made up number because I don't want to share real numbers. Let's say it's $5,000, right? You're the buyer, I'm the seller. You're going to owe me a stack of cash for the down payment plus all the closing costs on closing day, right? I can say, well, this minor repair is going to cost $5,000, so I'm just going to reduce your tab by $5,000. You had to have that cash on hand anyways, so you just get to keep it. And then you go pay the $5,000 to get it repaired. Otherwise, you lose your insurance after 30 days, your problem, right? The other way to do it is an escrow holdback, which is I'm the seller going to put $5,000 of my own money into an escrow account. Or, and this is more common, I'm going to give $6,000 to an escrow account in case that the repair costs more than anticipated. So then you take ownership of the house, you take the necessary money from escrow to pay for it, and then I get the rest back.
Okay.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
This lender that we're working with doesn't do escrow holdbacks. I don't know why. I would like to find out why, but I'm not allowed to talk to the lender because I don't have a broker. So that's my next update. But as for this update, just to wrap it up, put a bow on it, the only way to really do it is to do a credit at closing. Our buyer isn't comfortable with that. I personally feel like the buyer doesn't have all the information. I think that the buyer probably feels like this is a bigger issue than it really is. I think it's a really minor problem, like a really minor repair. I'll say it this way. The likelihood that it goes over budget or over schedule after the house closing is really low. So I think that the relative risk is really low. We also have word from the sellers that they would be willing to do a credit at closing for more than the actual quote. So the whole benefit of putting money in escrow is you can do extra to make sure that you cover the cost. They're willing to do extra as a credit at closing.
Yeah.
Even if and you don't have to give the change back, which is the ideal scenario, right? But our buyer feels that the risk is too high. I'm butthurt about it because I feel that the lender isn't really, I think the lender is doing a great job as a lender, which is saying, hey, the appraiser says it's fine. The underwriter says it's fine. It's up to you guys, right?
Yeah.
I don't think, I learned recently, like right before this podcast, that Grace doesn't have the same information about the minor issue that I do. Because I went and talked to the relevant inspectors and the people who are actually going to do the job.
Okay.
I thought she had been there when that was happening, but then I remembered that she wasn't. So this whole time while they're on the phone, I'm ripping my hair out going like, oh my God, like this is not a big deal. Like somebody say it's not a big deal. No one's saying it's not a big deal. What the hell is happening? Everybody is acting like this is a big deal. And so then today I was talking to Grace about it because ultimately what we're going to do is extend closing. which is unfortunate because we're extending closing to a day that I'm traveling for work. So I'm going to go get a brokerage and then I'm going to close on my first house. I'm not even going to be there, which is upsetting to me. But ultimately, I would like to get the house closed as soon as possible. I don't think that it's a valid reason not to. And I think that our buyer I think our buyer feels that it's a bigger risk than it really is because they don't have all the information. I feel that if they had all the information, they could make a more informed decision and wouldn't be so stressed about it. So even if they're still uncomfortable and want to push closing, that's totally fine. They'll feel less stressed about it. And so I'm like really fucking antsy and itchy to get into a broker. So that's my next update is last week I made it a goal to interview with brokerages and that didn't happen. I reached out to Remax first because I wanted to do the Remax interview first and then the Blue Marlin interview. I want to kind of warm up with Remax because they all love Grace and they all know me. So that's pretty much going to be a slam dunk. And I want to get all my stupid questions out of the way before I go to Blue Marlin because Blue Marlin is a little more sales oriented and competitive.
Hmm.
And I'm going to go to them and basically say, hey, I would like to be one of your competitive salespeople, and I'm a full-time engineer, so I'm going to kind of do this as a part-time gig, which isn't exactly a compelling argument, right? Now, I can say, I've already gotten a lead. I've already converted that lead into a buyer, and we're already under contract with this other agent. I am going to get in on this deal as soon as I sign with a brokerage, maybe pay my real estate dues or like my realtor dues, or give me a better broker split. But the Remax lady didn't get back to me until Friday. And by then it had to wait until Monday to actually schedule. So today I scheduled it. This Friday, I'm interviewing with Remax and I'm sick of waiting. So tomorrow I'm going to call Blue Marlin and see if I can get an interview set up for Wednesday or Thursday. And hopefully they can have a quicker response time. But this week I will actually be interviewing with brokers, which is cool. I'm aiming to have a decision made over the weekend so that all of next week can be onboarding so that by the time we actually close, I'm with a broker and can get on the contract and have this to my name.
Oh, cool. Yep.
So that's the buyer side of things,
Okay.
right? Any questions?
No, I follow that.
Okay. Here's the selling side of things. Because I mentioned in the last podcast, my parents know somebody who's looking to sell their house. Older
Yeah.
gentleman who wants to move down to South Florida to live with his family, right? Now, he's an older gent who can't see, read, or write very well, which is actually its own interesting puzzle because I'm wondering if his son, who is helping him sell the house, is going to have to get the power of attorney for him to actually sign documents because I'm not sure if he's able to sign documents himself. So that's a fun little lesson that I'm going to get to learn. But in preparation for the listing appointment that we had scheduled for Saturday, but wound up getting moved 2 weeks to next Saturday because they live in South Florida and they weren't able to meet this weekend. I put together a comparative market analysis of the house to run them through how much I think they should list the house for and why. And I learned some cool things in there. So a CMA is a comparative market analysis. Or in other words, I'm going to go look at other houses in the area that are similar and have sold recently and use that as an example to guesstimate how much your house is worth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of like an amateur appraisal, but you can't call it an appraisal because I'm not an appraiser. I'm not licensed. It's a CMA. So it's something that real estate agents can ballpark with, but it's not official.
Is there an advantage to being a licensed real estate agent as well as a CMA
The problem is,
or an appraiser?
an appraiser. The problem is an appraiser has to be an independent third party who doesn't get paid commission on anything.
Oh, got it.
Otherwise, you could be biased. So you can't be a real estate agent and an appraiser, or maybe you could, but you can't do it on the same deal, right?
Yeah.
But the CMA works well enough to kind of get it in the ballpark, right? And the CMA tools they have are pretty interesting, and I got to learn about them by running this CMA this week. So there's a couple terms here that I found pretty interesting. So the first term is market value, which is what the county appraiser thinks your house is worth. So when the guy comes to appraise our current buyer's house and is like, oh, you should do this minor repair before or after closing, that guy comes around to every house once a year and guesstimates what the house is worth. They don't always come door to door. Sometimes they do it via like satellite image and they do like huge neighborhoods at a time, right? They're like, the average value of a house in this neighborhood is probably XYZ, right? So they don't go in and look at like the number of bedrooms or if you have a pool or if your house, a roof is new or anything.
Yeah.
They really ballpark it, right? What's interesting is the market value could be like 500,000. So like your house right now is worth $500,000, right? The assessed value, which is the value that's used to calculate your property taxes, could be like 150,000.
Interesting.
And the reason for that is when you buy your home, let's say that you bought your currently $500,000 home for $60,000 in 1980, right? $60,000. In Florida, okay, well, maybe 1980 is a bad estimate because there's an act that's been passed in Florida called the Save Our Homes Act, which basically means that your home's assessed value cannot exceed 3% growth per year. It's either the rate of inflation, which is the consumer price index, or 3%, whichever is lower.
I remember voting on this, I think.
This was passed in 1994, so
Okay.
they might have extended it. But
There was a different act that we voted on in November that had to do with I think it was housing taxes, but I can't remember.
it could
Anyway,
be something similar or even the same.
yeah, it was something along those lines. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways,
This locks it in at 3% growth per year.
yeah.
So the house that you bought in 1980 for $60,000 today is worth $500,000, but it is limited at 3% growth, so it's only being taxed at a rate of
I
$140,000,
gotcha.
which is a really cool bonus for being a longtime owner of a piece of property. And it's also why when you're an acting real estate agent helping a buyer or seller, specifically buyers, you can't say, oh, hey, the current owner is paying X amount in property taxes, so you can expect to pay the same in property taxes because they had their home assessed who knows when, and you're going to get your home assessed today when we buy it. Expect higher property taxes, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you're actually allowed to say higher or lower, but you are supposed to say expect different property taxes because it's going to be different than the way it is now. But that's the assessed value, which I found interesting. And then another term that is interesting is the market value ratio. So the ratio between the market value, which is what the county appraiser looks every year and thinks what your home is worth, right, versus what it actually sells for, is the market value ratio. So if that's over 1, that's indicating a strong market, and if it's under 1, it's indicating a weak market because it's either homes are either selling for more than the county thinks it's worth or less, right? And so that's a useful tool because as a real estate agent, I can calculate the market value ratio for any home I'm buying or selling, and then whether or not I'm acting as a buyer or seller agent, I can indicate whether I'm getting a good deal or not. So, for example, for the house that we're closing on now, the market value ratio for the price that we're getting is over 1. But the average for the area is like 1.2, and ours is like 1.12.
Okay.
So we're 0.08 under the average, even though it's over 1.
Yeah.
So the market value ratio delta is between the average and what we were able to get, is a valuable number for me. So generally speaking, these CMAs spit out 2 estimates, which is the market value estimate and a square foot estimate. So the square foot is really exactly what it sounds like. It's like how many square feet is the house, right? So when I found that market value ratio delta, I was like, ooh, I can track that. And then I can start building an undeniable stack of evidence I am who I say I am, like Hormozy says, and say whether or not I'm getting my clients good deals or not, right? It's also a great indicator that most real estate, can you fuck it? Do you see this? This is an Excel table. Tyler doesn't have Excel tables. Tyler doesn't know what his average market value ratio delta is for any of his sales, and I'm tracking all of them. So let's see. Okay, all right.
Leave it up to the engineers to have Excel sheets for everything. I also have Excel sheets for everything. And my mentor, I'll send my mentor like a screen recording of me going through some Excel sheet, like some data analysis that I did, and he'll be like, to be honest, like I think just roll with it. And I'm like, okay.
He's like, I'll go off vibes, dude.
He'd be like, honestly, I got a little bit confused, but based on like the years of experience I have, I think that you're doing just fine. I was like, okay.
Today, so Joel's looking at buying a new car or truck.
Yeah.
And today I was like, oh, ask the seller if he has any maintenance records. He should have something. Most cars sell with something. And Joel was like, he doesn't have that. And I was like, he doesn't have anything, like any log of when they changed the oil? And he was like, dude, no one does that. And I was like, Sandra and I do. And he was like, you track everything? So I pulled up my Excel sheet with my maintenance log. And he was like, what the fuck? And then I pulled up my fuel analysis calculator. And he's like, what the hell? And then I was like, hang on. And so I found the BMW 330 folder. And I started going through those logs and the Sandra Sorok automotive invoices for every single item. And he was like, what the fuck? You guys are broken. And I was looking for your Miata folder, but I couldn't find it.
The Miata's
I was like, the Miata folder's wild.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, but like most people don't do this. And when they do, they don't give it to the next buyer. And I was like, when Sandra and I sold the 335, we gave those logs to the next
in a leather folder.
In a leather folder.
A leather binder. Yeah.
Anyways, so here's the data. So
I even made a custom Canva image of the car with like a track behind it, and I like did it all in sleeves. I made it nice.
Yeah. I wish more people did that with their cars.
Yeah, that'd be nice. More people on how want ice water. So, oh well.
Yeah, the car market is hell. No one has any data on their vehicles. How well they've maintained it.
It's very...
So you have the market value estimate, which is what are homes generally valued at versus what are they selling at. So you calculate the market value ratio and then multiply that by your market value, and then you get your market value
I
estimate
gotcha.
versus the square foot estimate. Market value is always high, square foot's always low. Okay, I say always, usually, right? Generally speaking, you split the difference and that's your starting point. It's back in the middle, right? So from your starting point is where you say, okay, well, it has a pool and most other homes don't have a pool. So now I look at my CMA and I see what's been calculated for, and now it's like, okay, maybe I bump it up $10,000 because it has a pool, or maybe the roof is too old and I can't do financed offers, and whoever buys a house is going to need a new roof, so I'll take off 15, right? Something like that. So from there, we were able to approximate where we think we should start listing, and then from there, oh, so this is a great example. This house has an old roof, right? Not leaking, no damage, nothing wrong with it, but it's over, I think 15 years is the cutoff for financing. So you can't get a mortgage on a house with a roof that's over 15 years old because the bank doesn't want the roof to get torn off in a hurricane and suddenly be underwater, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we either list the house for what it's worth, pay for the roof, and then accept financing offers. Well, they'll no doubt nickel and dime us in the inspection period because it's a bit of an older house. Or we knock off the price of the roof and a couple other extra things. So like maybe we take off like $16,000 total off the price, sell it as is, cash only. So investors basically is like, we're not going to pay to fix anything else. We've already absorbed the cost of what we think it's going to repair the house in the listing price, right?
Yeah.
And that is an invitation for lowballs and few offers. So it's either we pay for the roof and wait to have it fixed, and then we put it on the market and wait for people to scalp us, or we list it now at a decent price and then wait for somebody who's willing to play ball. So those are the two strategies. But
Got it.
from discovering the market value ratio delta, I started to think, Hormozy says the quickest way to spot talent is to determine the quality and quantity of the metrics that you track.
Yep.
And I don't track anything for real estate yet. So what can I track? So I went through and determined what I can track in terms of leads, in terms of buyer clients, seller clients, and renters, because we've already worked with a couple apartment rentals.
Yeah. Can I interrupt you super briefly
Absolutely.
to add to that?
Yeah.
Something else that goes along with that same Hormozy quote is winners have more ways to measure success than like people just starting out.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's something that I've been thinking about this week is like my only real metrics for measuring winning ads are like how much they spend, what the return on ad spend is, and like how many sales I get, right? And like as I go on, I like start to learn little pieces of like what could indicate a good ad potential, like frequency or cost per click, or like these other little metrics. And I'm sure that like I'll get more and more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very similar point. Like the more you work in it, the more you start to realize all these different things that you can track, and you can kind of quantify them in Excels and make graphs and understand the problem more concretely, rather than initially you just kind of look at it superficially and you have a couple things that you can see here and there, but you don't have a clear picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I described this to Grace later on because I was, and I'll get into this. I'm working the value equation for buyers, sellers, and renters, right?
Sure.
And she was like, "What are you putting this in like a PowerPoint? Like, what's the outcome of this?" And I was like, "I just want to better understand where I'm at." Um, and the example I used was, if someone comes to Tyler and me, and we're sitting next to each other, and they go, "I need a real estate agent. Who do I go with?" Right? Tyler's going to go to, "I have more experience, and trust me, bro." And I'm going to have to go to, I don't have as much experience. Here's my numbers. And even with less experience, I have numbers and Tyler doesn't. So the best Tyler can do is look at my numbers and say, my numbers are better. Trust me, bro. And that doesn't stand up to the numbers, even if the numbers are truly weaker, right? But also numbers don't lie. So here are the numbers that I'm tracking. The first thing is number of leads. So I quantify a lead based on, here's a phone number. They might be interested in a house, selling or buying or renting. Right?
Yeah.
Potentially, because and Tyler mentioned this to me the other week. He was like, that we were going through the inspection period, and I was like, I don't know if we're gonna get this done. I think that there's like an unhappy middle where the seller is a little bit unhappy. Did I talk about this in a previous episode?
Uh, Potentially keep going a little bit.
So Max Verstappen got a 5-second penalty in a race the other week,
Oh yeah.
and Red Bull was unhappy because they didn't think he
I
should have
remember
gotten
this
one.
analogy. Yeah.
And McLaren thought he should have gotten a 10-second. And there's a quote that's like, you're doing business well if everybody's a little
Yes.
unhappy, right?
Yeah.
So for this, I was like, dude, the seller's gonna have to give a little bit, and the buyer's gonna have to understand we can't ask for 10% off the house, right?
Yeah.
And Tyler was like, you should know that there's always a perfect string of words to make a perfect conglomerate of sentences to make a deal happen. And if it doesn't work out, it's because you didn't say the right thing. And I was like, okay, that's actually a really great motivational way to do it, because I was like, well, if the buyer doesn't want to budge, the buyer doesn't want to budge, even if he's being rational. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, how can I get the buyer to see reason? Right. And then how can I get the listing agent to see that our buyer is seeing reason, so their sellers have to see reason too? And so I started to work on that. Right. So a number of leads is just strictly how many phone numbers do I get that are people that could be interested in buying a home. Right. And so then, of course, that's number of leads converted into actual clients, right? So I've got a conversion rate for that. So right now we've had 6 leads. We've converted 4 of them into actual clients. So that's a 66% conversion ratio, right? And then we've got number of leads closed. So that's total number of leads, 6, to how many of them have actually closed on a property or a rental. I'm counting both. Um, and so right now, the conversion closing rate, so of the number of leads, just people who might be interested, to closing, so 6 and 2 is 33%. And then the number of leads converted, so people who were interested and then we got them as clients, did we keep them as clients and close with them or not? That's 50%. So 2 out of 4, right? So the importance here is it's sometimes you're going to get a phone number and it's just a bad lead, right? Like they just are not qualified. I still want to count that because I'd rather be conservative, but I don't want it to totally fuck my numbers, because if there's somebody who is a qualified lead and I close on them, I want to show credit for that. So I've got 2 different rates here. One rate is out of everybody, and then the other rate is, okay, these are out of serious people who are ready to do this, right? I then have properties bought and properties sold and the volume for each, number of rentals found, because you can't really quantify a volume there, right? And then the total volume. So between Grace and I, after we get this house sold in a few weeks, it's going to be $1 million with both of us.
Wow.
So I'm tracking Grace and I together, but I've got a column that says if we're working a deal alone. So Grace's first deal was like $700,000 or something like that, right? I had nothing to do with that. If we're working as a real estate team, we can combine our numbers together and bring it to a client and say, this is our combined experience, right?
Yeah.
We also have the opportunity to segment the 2 and then go off on our own if we choose to do that. So these are numbers for both of us. And we haven't had a seller yet. So just for buyers, here's all the metrics I'm tracking. I'm just going to rattle them off. So this is after we get a buyer, average number of showings, average number of offers, average number of counter offers, average number of inspection periods, average inspection period length in days, average days to contract. So that's from getting the lead to getting them under contract, which represents how good we are at finding a viable option for them, right? Average total duration from getting a lead to closing on the property, average listing age, so how long has the property been on the market or was it on the market, average listing price, average sale price, which kind of shows the delta if we're getting them a deal or not, like bringing them down from the average listing price, average market value ratio delta, which shows whether or not we're getting a good deal relative to the market, not just the listing price, average credits at closing, because most sellers want to know if they can get something off at closing, or most buyers want to know that. And then average buyer agent commission, which is our commission. And ideally that stays the same or increases. It doesn't go down. And that's just for me to track, not to bring to buyers. But with all that, that gives me a fucking enormous amount of ammunition to bring to potential clients, right?
Yeah.
So that brings me to my last business update, which is offer generation. So I hit the point where I was like, okay, we're going to close on this property in a few weeks. I'm going to go get a brokerage. Then I'm going to have to start getting leads, right? And Tyler talked to me the other day and he was like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to go back into real estate full time, but I would be interested if like leads could just be handed to me. I would go close those. So if you can figure out a way to make leads happen, I'll invest money in that. Just figure it out. So he has a couple ideas as well, and there's one other guy he wants to do it with me and Grace, but we haven't figured it out yet. But in general, I was like, okay, I'm going to go listen to Hormozi's leads book. I listened to the offers book. Now I'm going to go listen to the leads book, right? And recently, I told you this already, I've been listening to Hormozi podcasts, but only ones where he's a guest on other people's podcasts. Because I like to listen to podcasts for like an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time. And if I listen to just Hormozi talking on his solo podcast, there's so much valuable information, and he never takes a breath. I can't stop and process any of it, which I'm now realizing is exactly what I've done for the past 10 minutes with Mind Metrics. But no one's going to get value from this, so who cares? If I listen to him as a guest on someone else's podcast, while they're talking, whatever they're saying, I cannot listen to them and process what Hormozi just said. So I decided, okay, the leads book is like raw, unadulterated, like continuous content. I'm going to listen until I get something so valuable, I have to take action item on it. I have to try it, right? And I made it 4 minutes into the book because he was talking about how the sales process always starts with offer generation, then getting leads, and then making the sale. And I realized that I'm doing this out of order. I watched Hormozy's 4-hour sales course like months ago, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get leads, and I'm concurrently trying to do this like, sales metrics thing to try to figure out an offer. And I was like, stop. Replicate, then iterate, right? So start with the offer. So I went back to the value equation, which I had started writing months ago, but didn't have a firm understanding of, and thus shouldn't have been going to look for leads because I didn't have an understanding. But just to break down the value equation, I'm doing it for buyers, for sellers, and for renters. And so I have only done it for buyers so far. Actually, that's not true. I went to my brother's graduation today and I did the sellers one in my notes app while that was happening. But I have the buyers one written here. So just for the audience, real quick, Hormozy's value equation is a numerator and a denominator. It's a fraction. On the top is the dream outcome and the perceived likelihood of achievement. And on the bottom is the time delay and effort and sacrifice. You want to increase the top, decrease the bottom to increase the value, right? So for buyers, under dream outcome, I have it's the result. This is the ideal result or benefit the customer is striving for. So for buyers in real estate, the dream outcome is going to be the same for every customer, which is find, inspect, and purchase their dream home for the best deal possible. So for contributing factors, I have accurately determining customer desires or ensuring listing requirements fit buyers' preferences. And this can be quantified by the average number of showings per customer duration period. So I'm using the math from the metric
Yep.
that I'm tracking over here to support the dream outcome. So my goal here is to have a number that corresponds with at least one, if not more, of these metrics here, so I can quantify the value equation.
Yeah.
The next one is to collect data on the home value appreciation and share anticipation of trend data. This is tricky because real estate agents are not allowed to say whether a home is going to go up for sure in value or not. You've got to be really vague about it, right? And after talking with Grace and a few of our mentors about it, ultimately they were like, you can't do it, right? So I think I've talked to you off camera about the current home that we're doing and how I think it's going to go up in value, but I can't say that, right? What you can do is get hard concrete appreciation data that's already occurred and then show a trend line. And unless you're in a recession, home values are just going to go up.
Yeah.
So you can give that data in your CMA to somebody and say, or I guess, yeah, you'll run a CMA on a showing property. Give them that data and say, hey, just so you know, here's what the trend has looked like.
Mm.
So I have that in here, which isn't one of the metrics that I'm tracking, but you could make that. Grace knows where to get the trend data from. I don't. The next one is accurately determining the market value and comparing to the listing value, which can be quantified by average market value ratio per buyer, which I've glazed enough in this episode. And then the last one is winning a competitive offer in a strong market, and offer generation and negotiation strategy play to that. So that's not a metric that I've quantified just yet, but I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. But that has also aligned with me that I need to better understand the offer generation process and how negotiation fits into that when I'm acting for a buyer or seller, I guess, if I'm negotiating on their behalf. And Hormozy has this really interesting example of him buying a home, how he reverses the value equation on someone to try to decrease the effort and sacrifice component or the price by as much as possible by conceding on the time delay and perceived likelihood of achievement and dream outcome for the other person.
Interesting.
So that's the dream outcome. The next variable, I'm just going to burn through these because it's like a whole page, is the perceived likelihood of achievement, which is essentially a measure of how much trust your client has that you can get the job done as a real estate agent. Note, this is based on perception. So you have to make sure that they know how good you are at it, right? So there's a fine line between being humble and being braggadocious. You have to confidently let them know that you're the guy for the job. And the best way that I know how to do that, similar with the rowing statistics, is just here's what I'm capable of. Here are the numbers, right? You make the determining factor. Go find another real estate agent who tracks the same data. You're not. So real estate experience is the biggest one. And I really fucking hate experience as a determining factor. I'm dealing with this at work right now. Because your experience shouldn't matter. Your capability should, right? So instead of using just years of experience, instead the metrics that I have here is number of sales, sales volume, Google ratings, which is like firsthand customer feedback, average number of showings, which essentially reflects our search accuracy, right? So like when we take you out to look at a home, what's the likelihood that that's the actual home that you go for? Or in other words, am I picking good homes for you to look at? Market value ratio delta, again, glazing this one. It's basically our deal making ability. Can we get you a home that's under what the market value is at right
Yeah.
now? Actions that we take to protect our buyers, such as inspections, appraisals, off-market options, etc. And then we can guarantee all responses within 1 hour from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So the other day we had a call from a client and we were at the gym, so we couldn't take it. And so he texted us, and he was like, "Hey, please call me." And so when we left the gym, Grace was like, "Oh man, like I'm stressed out because I know he's gonna be like, 'Why didn't you call me back?' or whatever." And I was like, "Well, hang on, like he called like 36 minutes ago. We've never responded to this guy past like an hour, right? And they have made us wait for days before. So relax.
Yeah.
We've been responding within an hour on everything." Um, so that's PLOA. Now, time delay. So these are things that we're trying to decrease. This is how long it will take them to see the final result or even any progress. The easiest way here to make money is to step into a business space and do the same task in half the time. Fast beats free. This is a Hormozi direct quote. If it's going to take time, is there something we can do along the way to reassure them they are making progress? So for contributing factors here, you know, you don't want to always rush or really ever rush the process because you want to make sure that you're getting good value, right? So like
Yeah.
the underlying disclaimer here is do it in as fast as possible while still maintaining quality. Do not rush and, lose quality here.
Yeah.
So great example is for this inspection period, we are between extending closings so this minor repair can get done before or after closing, right? Buyer kind of wants it to be done beforehand, insinuating longer closing time. Seller wants it the other way. So for me as an agent, that's going to increase my average duration of a client, right? Which is a negative impact because you want this to be as small as possible, right? Well, what if your buyer is like, I want to take my time and make sure that we do things right. I don't want to rush anything. Then a really short average, duration would reflect that I rush them. And I don't want that. So,
Mm.
I've kind of come around to the idea of if we have to extend closing, this number can be interpreted different ways. And ultimately, as long as it's a well-rounded number, it's a well-rounded number. Um, but in terms of setting waypoints, you can do that really easily. So by setting a clear goal or waypoint to achieve throughout the process, I have written down walk the buyer through the buying process for first-time home buyers and make yourself available to answer questions and hit a win quickly by sending the requirements list that you go over in your first meeting for what type of home they're looking for, along with the MLS list of all the homes that fit their description in the given area. Like same day within 24 hours, no questions asked,
Mm.
right? Always send that first. And in that first meeting, you can say, okay, here are the 4 steps in buying a home, right? The first one is to figure out what we're looking for and find a list of options. The second is to go to showings. Third is an inspection period. And the last one is closing, right? And here's what you can expect for each of those steps. So then you're breaking it down into, oh, well, in the first 12 hours working with this person, box 1 is checked. We're 25% of the way there in the first day. Awesome, right?
Mhm.
So I spoke with Grace about that, and she thinks that we can hit that consistently no matter how many clients we have. We can get that MLS list done in the same day as our first meeting, no matter what. Um, and then after that, for time delay, the average days to contract demonstrates how quickly we can accurately find a property that's suitable for our client. So again, backed by data. Last variable here is effort and sacrifice, or what costs or inconveniences must the customer incur to achieve the result. What do they have to put into this? And more importantly, what will we do as agents to decrease the effort and sacrifice that they have to do? So the contributing factors here, the MLS list is provided to the buyer, meaning buyers won't have to go house hunting. We will schedule and attend all the showings so they don't have to do it themselves. We'll be providing a CMA so that they don't have to deal with having to estimate how good or bad of a deal it is. We'll know for sure by doing the CMA. We will offer and counter offer negotiation strategies. The buyer isn't going to have to deal with being a master in negotiation or understanding the real estate industry or what the selling agent tactics might be. We'll bring all that to the table. They don't have to choose and schedule all the inspections. If they don't want to, we'll come with recommendations and we'll do all the scheduling for them. They have to pay, but at least we take care of everything and we have
Right.
trusted people to work with. Selecting a lender. If they don't know how to get a mortgage, we have MLOs we can recommend to them and put them in contact with. And then closing costs. We'll explain closing costs early on in the process to properly prepare them for what to expect. And our average credits at closing sets an expectation of whether or not they should expect to pay or receive credits at closing. And that's, again, another metric. So that's the whole value equation I have broken down for buyers. So I'm doing that also for sellers and renters.
Cool.
Or the sellers one, I guess, is done. I keep forgetting. But that's how my numbers are going to inform the value equation, which I will eventually embody and then bring into leads.
Very cool.
That's my business update.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah.
30 minutes of nonstop talking.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a busy one.
Yeah.
Um,
What's your life?
my life update is relatively brief.
Good. I got a lot.
um, so yeah, there's been a bunch of turmoil at work in regards to the latest proposed budget cuts. They are not official. They have to run through Congress. But there's been some turmoil and some people asking questions and stuff like that. In terms of the future of the program right now, everything is guaranteed secure at least through Artemis 3. Right now, we are building up Artemis 2. So no need to start sweating quite yet. I hope to be not sweating at all very soon, but we'll see how things go.
Yeah.
I made some good memes. Made some good memes out of it. One of them I want to shout out is the stonks meme where the stonks go up.
Yeah.
There's also one that's not stonks where it goes down and it's all red. And so I had that picture of the not stonks with it red and going down, and then my caption is we are going merch sales after the budget cut.
We are going
because we are going is like the slogan for NASA and the Artemis program, and so I said we are going merch sales after the budget cut.
That's so.
So I made a couple good memes out of it. Had a good laughs. But it's all up in the air right now. It has to go through Congress, and even if everything is accepted by Congress and it still goes through, like it's still multiple years out.
Right.
So there's still plenty of funding on the table. No need to worry, at least in my opinion. If anyone wants to leave, they have 2 to 3 years to find a different job. So,
and secret time, Northrop Grumman is about to have a lot of job openings happening.
Yes, that is true.
Not fully announced, but like highly anticipated.
Yeah. So,
dude, it'd be so fun to work together.
I hope I don't have to work somewhere. That's the goal.
I'm gonna keep reporting your Shopify shops on Facebook. So I'm gonna keep flagging this. So you can link out.
But it's that's been some turmoil over on that end. But overall, it's been relatively steady at work, kind of same old thing. And then in terms of other life stuff, I went to Orlando Speed World this weekend and saw some drag racing. It was traditional style bracket racing with a $52,000 pot. A lot of fun, a lot of cars running in the 6s and 7s on the quarter mile. So good fun time to watch. I saw the Watson jet dragster there with Elaine. So it was cool to say hi to her again. She recognized me from our time at Formula C and whatever.
Right.
And it was a good time. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Just did a little few hour outing out there and watched some racing. And right now the BMW needs some work. I need to put a battery in that car. I have to jump it every time I start it. Every time.
The back battery or the front battery?
There is only one on that car. It's in the back.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too good either.
Yeah, so I have to have a jump pack on me at all times. If I let it sit for more than like 2 hours, it won't start. So you gotta get a new.
Have you unplugged your dash cam?
Yeah, even when I unplug it,
yeah, bad battery.
It's just a bad battery.
Got it. That's
so I'm gonna get that replaced. I want to see if I can get a free replacement through AAA because they do free battery replacements, and I'm wondering if I can kind of finagle into that a little bit with my AAA. But I'll see what I can do. Worst case scenario, I can get a Duralast from AutoZone and
lifetime warranty or something.
Yeah,
3-year warranty.
3-year warranty, but you can go there every 3 years and get a new one. So they aren't hard asses about that, which is nice.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's been mostly just the ad stuff that I've talked about, and I enjoyed the OSW thing. I had fun with that, and just kind of getting in the groove of things, waiting to run my ads again, and running some metrics and some graphing stuff with the data that I have thus far or have access to right now, and just kind of setting myself up as best I can to prevent holdups in the future if ad accounts or business managers get locked up at some point in the future. So just kind of some setup stuff like that, but relatively short on the life update side.
Thank God, because I have so much. So I've talked for a long time about getting a 0% APR credit card.
Oh yeah,
and I
got calls about that, and I forgot to do it this week. So maybe that'll be a
calls like credit card companies calling.
Yeah, well, I went there to pull cash, and they're like, "Oh, you're already pre-qualified for your personal 0% APR credit card for a year," and I was like, "Fucking say less."
Hell yeah.
And so they called me a couple times, and I ignore them because I ignore all calls that I don't recognize, and I forgot to call them back. I have 52 missed call notifications that I haven't cleared on my phone.
I hate the little number.
Spectrum keeps calling me for their friggin' router and modem, which I returned a month ago. Spectrum, if you're watching, I'm not picking up your stupid call. I've talked to you once, and it was agonizing, and you forced me to do a survey. So give up on me. I ain't answering. And they don't have my credit card info anymore, so bye-bye.
That's a little credit card expired.
Yeah, exactly.
That was maxed out. Bye-bye.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I got pre-qualified for one, but
Yeah.
maybe that'll be my next weekend update if I
I've
actually do that.
So I've been pushing it off because I've been like, oh, when I quit my job, I'm going to get the 0% just in case I fall on hard times. But as real estate has started picking up, I've started realizing that when I quit my job, I think I'll be fine. I don't think I need it. But after you quit your job and you apply
It's a
for a
lot
credit
harder.
card, it's a lot harder because you don't have
Yes.
monthly income. So I thought, well,
That's
fuck,
what I've been thinking too.
I should get one now while
Yeah.
I have this income, right? And so I decided that I'm going to go with American Express because Greg has American Express and he has a credit score so high I didn't know it existed. But what he told me about Amex is that uh, you can have great credit with like a different company, Chase, Capital One, whatever. But if this, it's kind of like Ferrari. The second you swap over to Amex, they're not going to give you the best shit because they only give the best shit to people who've been there for a long time, right? And I don't know anything about like fucking credit card swole or what, but apparently Amex is like the big dick credit card. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think they have the black card, like that metal one.
Yeah.
Like
I know
so,
I know they're very reputable and I know that their customer service is fantastic. And
yeah.
so ultimately that's what I chose to go with. A large reason is I already have a Capital One credit card. Their services have been great, but I don't know about longevity. And then with Chase, we use them for Kahuna and I had a decent experience with them, but I don't work with their online website as effectively as I do with other ones.
Yeah.
And so
I'm gonna go with Chase because they already offered it to me, and
Yeah.
I've had an account with them for years.
Yeah.
And it integrates directly with my business card, so it makes my life easy.
I might
But
also open one with Chase. I don't know
yeah,
yet, because while I have the income, I might as
the
well
more the
go
merrier.
make bread while the sun shines. What's it called? Make hay.
Something like
Make hay while
that.
the sun shines. So what I did was American Express has 14 different credit card options, right? So I made a list of every credit card option, every monthly fee, every annual percentage rate, every points bonus or cashback or percent bonus,
Mm.
right? So I've got like a fucking chart of all of them, and then I just picked the one that fits me best. So I got the Blue Cash Preferred card. It's $95 a year, and I get 6% back on gas. So it pays
Oh
for
wow.
itself in like a week and a half because I buy so much gas.
Fuck
Um, so I applied and I was approved immediately, and I have the card. Like it's in the mail, but I have the online card in my Apple Wallet, so I'm already spending on it. It's awesome.
Perfect.
And then that inspired me to go back to Quicken, which I haven't used in a long time because my laptop died with all of
yeah.
my data. And now I'm trying to link all of my new accounts to it. So like the Amex, Coinbase, my retirement account. My retirement account says I have fucking 14 grand in it. Remember several months ago, I thought it was only 7 or half of 7. Remember how I had like the miss of 7 grand and I lost 7 grand in one day because I didn't realize I didn't have it right? Apparently it is like 14. So I was right. So I've got to call accounting before I quit my job and make sure that, I get
Okay.
my fucking
I
money.
have like 2 because I did it for like 3 months and then I cut it.
I did it through my entire internship. I
Yeah.
had no idea. So,
Sweet.
So yeah, but then I had a fucking Quicken murder fantasy because I can't connect to Coinbase. And it's not a Coinbase problem because Coinbase shows it's linked. It's a Quicken problem. The problem also is Quicken's web feature is awesome, right? You can log in on the web and do all your shit and automatically syncs to everything. Life is good. You can't add accounts unless you download the installation.
Yeah.
So you download the installation, add an account, and then hit sync with the web, right? If you download an installation, whatever, do all your stuff on your file and then close it without saving it or updating it to the web, it doesn't reflect.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure out how it goes back and forth. I haven't gone through and recategorized all my stuff. It's a fucking nightmare. So I gave up on it. But I gave up on it just in time because the Lego May the 4th promotion, May the 4th be with you. They have a promotional week. And one of the newest sets is released on May 1st for the May 4th promo. It's like all week, right? Starting on May 1st. And I really wanted that set. It's a $300 set. And I said, you know what? I'm about to close on my first real estate deal. I think that Lil Wayne said you should like blow your first 10 grand. And I'm not going to do that, but I will take a small percentage of my commission. My commission is going to be like $2,900. I'm going to take a small percentage, 10%, and I'm going to go buy a Lego set because I haven't gotten myself a Lego set in a long time. It's only been gifts, right? So I went to the Lego store, but I got a rumor that this other bigger $600 set was going to be on sale. And I was like, ooh, everyone's here for the new one, and I might cop the old one because the $600 set was on sale for $400. And so I was like, it's an extra $100, but this one retires this year. I've wanted it for years. I've never gotten it because I've never had enough money to buy it, and my friends and family don't get it for me for Christmas or anything.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting it. And I got a limited edition gift with purchase set that they only made like a couple hundred of. So
Oh wow.
yeah, it was a good time. Unfortunately, one of the Lego YouTubers I follow online dropped a new video this week that I saw for the first time, in which he unveiled and unboxed, like he had big cardboard boxes, and as he opened a cardboard box, he has every single Lego Star Wars set that has ever been created on loan to him from a private collector who wants to liquidate. So he auctioned
Wow.
off every single one of every single Lego Star Wars set on Whatnot over the past 4 days, and I watched every minute of it.
Wow.
And I was really tempted to buy a lot of things, and I didn't. I only bought $100 worth of things. And the only reason I did is because it's a once in a lifetime event that's never been done before. It'll never happen again, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I got $100 worth of things.
Cool.
So I spent more money than I wanted to, but my Quicken is broken, so what do you want me to do about it? And it was really cool. I'm also supposed to be traveling for work. I'm supposed to travel in one of the earlier weeks of May, but now that we're having to extend closing, I told them I can't travel because I'm closing that day. But now we're extending closing to the middle of the second period of travel, which I'm
Yeah.
actually going on. So fuck me, I guess. And then one of my final actual life updates is that Kimi Antonelli got a sprint pole position for the F1 sprint race this weekend, which is awesome. He got really unlucky during the race, and then the actual race, he got really unlucky again. But I went back and looked at it. His qualifying this year, it was P16, then P8, then P6, then P4, then P2, then a sprint pole,
Wow.
and then P3 in the actual race.
Okay.
So he is like on the come up. And I saw someone make an Instagram post. They were like in the first race, someone like I can't remember. It's like in qualifying, he got like knocked out of qualifying unfairly. Like someone else crashed in front of him or something.
Yeah.
In the second race, he got floor damage. In the third race, someone hit him, something like that. Like he's been unlucky in every race, and he's still putting in these performances. So we have truly entered the Kimi Antonelli era. And I'm so excited to see what he does in the next couple races. Everyone was like, dude, Kimi Antonelli's like cooking George Russell. This was Miami.
Yeah.
And they were talking to Toto, and they were like, Kimmy's doing really well. Pole in the sprint race, third in the real race. He's got to be. These are qualifying, right? He's got to be coming up for a win or a podium pretty soon, right? And Toto Wolff was like, just wait. He's never raced at Miami before. Zero experience with the track, not even sim work. And everyone was like, he did well. And he was like, we're going to the Italian tracks next. Those are tracks Kimmy knows. And everyone's like, what? So everyone's getting stoked. Okay, this is my last life update, right? We have 10 minutes. So this is a little bit of a longer one because this is a life lesson that I learned this week. So, gotta take a drink. This went poorly. Okay, so I was at the bar hanging out one day, and Alinka and Jarrell were talking about Elon Musk. So the position was Alinka really didn't like Elon Musk. Jarrell does like Elon Musk. And Jarrell was asking Alinka why she didn't like him. And he was being very candid about it. He wasn't like applying judgment or anything like that. They were just having conversation. And a lot of Alinka's reasons weren't really founded, right? So one of the reasons was she was like, I don't like how he like basically plugs Tesla stock everywhere and tells everyone to buy Tesla stock because that seems like he's abusing his influence to gain money. And Jarrell was like, he's actually told people directly not to buy Tesla stock before. And so she was like, no, he hasn't. And Jarrell pulled up the video of him saying at a big conference where he was like, don't buy Tesla stock.
He was like, I don't know why people keep buying it. I keep telling them it's overinflated, but I tell them not to buy it. It's what he said.
It's that clip, right? So you know the one.
Yeah.
And then she was like, well, he doesn't care about people because of whatever. And then he was like, well, he's trying to get humans to another planet. I think that's caring about people, right? And like the Neuralink, like what if I told you that the first fully paralyzed person in the world has gone from paralyzed to fully functioning again? Like, isn't that a miracle? Neuralink does that. And she was like, well, and she pivoted. She was like, well, he said that if someone could come up with a cure for world hunger, that he would personally pay for it. And someone found it for like 7 billion, which isn't even like a lot of what he has, and he didn't pay for it. And I was like, well, wait, what was the solution? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, you don't know anything about it? And she was like, no, I just remember reading about it somewhere. And I was like, well, how can you apply judgment if you don't know if it's legitimate? Like that could have been $7 billion of buying one person on the entire world a single Lunchable. That's not solving world hunger. It's a short-term.
It also, it could have been just like a bunch of Lunchables distributed out to everyone for like 6 months.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it is like a farming solution where everyone can eat. Let's just say that's the case, right? When civilizations can eat regularly, the number of disease decreases and more people live.
Yeah.
Right. The more people you have, the more disease you have, the more people die. So it's kind of cyclical, right? Let's just say
Mm.
that no one on Earth went hungry ever again, right?
Sure.
The population would undoubtedly increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And land is a limited resource. And so if you solve world hunger, you then quickly have the problem of there's not enough space on planet Earth for all these people. So Elon Musk is trying to get us to another planet to circumvent that issue, right?
I I see your point. I also I kind of have a different perspective on it because Elon Musk has also said that Earth can easily support 11 billion people plus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, I think that I feel as though it's a humane obligation to try and help people who are starving, or hungry, or just born in a tougher environment. Like I think that that's an important thing to do. Whether
Sure.
I have. I always look back to the skit from the '90s. I can't remember who did it, but they were like, "Just move to where the food is." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like I understand that perspective too. Um, but there's also a lot of data to suggest that our population is actually going to be on the decrease pretty soon,
Right.
just because of such a low birth rate in relation to an increasing elderly population, just because of the advances in medicine,
Mhm.
and doctors. So I think there's multiple factors. I see where you're going. I'm interested
Yeah.
to see how you go.
The
But
the ultimate perspective here is Elon said he would pay for a solution if someone came up with it.
right,
Supposedly someone came up with it. I can't confirm that. If we even give it the benefit of the doubt, it's still not like a perfect solution. But what Elon's working on currently is an indirect solution to the same problem, right? So
yeah, and
if you
also like
say,
this like perfect solution thing. Like it in any case ever, as soon as someone says I have the perfect solution, I know that it's the worst solution possible.
yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
just like every single time. It's like when you're scrolling online and you see like get this pro camera, and I was like, that's not a pro camera, right?
Yeah.
Outside of like GoPro is like the only case I've ever seen the word pro used, and it's actually like a pro product, right? Like these like perfect solution things, like just
Yeah.
don't.
They don't exist. The perfect
Yeah,
solution does not exist.
yeah, there's always pros and cons. It's
Right.
about weighing those
Right.
cons.
The problem is if Elon says I'll pay for it and then you say I have the perfect solution and then Elon doesn't pay for it and you don't look into it anymore, it makes Elon look bad. And you don't think about the scenario like
Yeah.
you haven't read into the perfect solution. You don't know if it's perfect or not. Even if you
Well, I
read a
think
synopsis,
people fish for what they want to see too.
exactly. And so the perspective that Jarrell and I were bringing was like, okay, well, what can we confirm here, right? And one of her other points was, well, he has like 15 kids with 15 different women. And I was like, I'm pretty sure those women are consenting. Like they recognize what's happening here and they're okay with it.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
pretty sure if I know that he has, let's say, 15 different women, that the women also know that he has 15 different
Right.
women, right?
Well, and so then she said, well, he's paying to keep other ones a secret. And I was like, how do you know that? And she was like, I read about it. And I was like, did Elon say it? And she was like, well, no, because he's keeping it a secret. And I said, did the women that he's paying to keep secret say anything about it? And she was like, well, no, because they wanted to keep paying. And I was like, okay, then where did this come from? Because it doesn't sound like a viable source. And she couldn't quote a viable source. And I was like, okay,
Also, there's
there's
a aspect of, hey, if you're Elon Musk's wife with his kids, that's a security risk,
right,
right? Like just broadly speaking, like,
right.
you know, if you, when we get to the level of being wealthy and famous, I don't know if I necessarily want photos of my children on the internet,
Right.
right? Because like that's a security risk.
The mom might not want that.
Right, exactly.
Right. Also,
Exactly.
what if he's paying child support and that's what he's paying and the mom just wants to be anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing is,
There's so
you
many
can't,
layers.
it's so difficult because
Yeah.
no one directly involved has spoken about it. And so then it's a rumor and then that's a tabloid rumor and then that
Right.
can't be trusted. So I wasn't upset with her,
No, no.
but as we went through this conversation, it really opened my eyes to, okay, you have to validate sources in order for them to be usable.
Yeah.
But then also this went back to the like you can hate an idea without hating a person, right?
Yeah.
And I hate the idea of the ignorance of not knowing. So like another example, Joel and I were talking about the NASA. He was like, did Sandra tell you that they're cutting all of NASA? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, this institution, man. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, they're cutting trees in national parks. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, what for? And he was like, probably like lumber or something. There's no good reason. And I was like, well, hang on. Like, you can't say it's no good reason if you don't know what the reason is.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, there's no good reason to cut down trees. It's probably just for timber or something. And I was like, maybe, but you don't know that. What if it's an invasive species that's choking out some other rare endangered plant? And that's why they have to cut the trees. And Joel was like, that's not the reason. And I was like, oh, like what is your source? And he was like, well, I don't have one. And I was like, then you can't say that. And
There's
eventually,
also an aspect of keeping a forest maintained where you have to cut down certain portions. Like if
right,
a forest has too many trees that are too dense in it, yes,
right,
over time it will naturally weed itself out, but that happens over the course of hundreds of years. If you want to keep a forest healthy for, viewing pleasure or national park pleasure,
right.
then there are certain maintenance protocols that you have
Yeah,
to follow. I dealt with that, or I didn't personally deal with that, but my grandparents dealt with that
yeah,
with the property that they personally had, that they had to partially deforest in certain areas because of the
right,
density in order to keep that forest healthy.
right. The forest fires in California are because they were having fires. They set up watchtowers. They didn't let any fires get out of control for like 40 years. Everything got super dry, and then all of it burned down.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and then ultimately Grace looked it up and she was like, it is for timber, confirmed. And I was like, okay, confirmed source, it's for timber. Now we can make a judgment based on our individual opinions on what it's about. But the problem is rushing into the judgment of making the assumption, because the
Yeah.
assumptions are dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't upset with him. I was frustrated because he wasn't understanding that you can't make that assumption until you know. You cannot use that information
Yeah.
until you have it. And then last night I saw a guy I watch. His channel's called Star Wars Theory, right?
Mm.
All Star Wars stuff. This guy's fucking awesome. He's the best candidate and advocate for Star Wars ever, right?
Yeah.
And he was breaking down a Matt Walsh video because Revenge of the Sith was in theaters recently for
Yeah.
a re-release, right? Incredible movie, right? And Matt Walsh made a video dissing it and talking about why he didn't like it. And immediately my blood pressure spiked because I love that movie. It's a great movie, and I hate everybody who says otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So now there's 3 examples of me disagreeing with somebody for being short-sighted, and in only one of them am I angry, right? And Star Wars Theory broke down the video, and he was really rational about it. He was like, I've spent my entire career talking to people who don't like the prequel trilogy and trying to advocate for it. And so this is what I'm going to do again, right? And Matt Walsh's entire take was really short-sighted and super ignorant, and he didn't even know he was ignorant.
Yeah.
And
He's also not a Star Wars guy.
that's when I
Yeah.
right. But if that's the case, like, why are you imparting a judgment on it?
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, oh, there's a common thread here, which is some people don't even know enough about a subject to know how much they don't know.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
people who make an opinion.
Yeah. And there's so many layers behind the scenes too. Like there's an aspect of maybe in this particular case, Daily Wire is having some turmoil in terms of financial struggles. So at least that's been kind of like the rumor floating around through different people and different organizations, and they're trying to sell Daily Wire, and they've been inflating some subscription numbers and stuff like that. Maybe there's an aspect of Matt Walsh, because he's a part of the Daily Wire, has been pushed into doing these kind of like more
Clickbaity shit.
clickbaity shit, right? Like stuff like that, right? Like there's so many layers to these different problems.
Yeah.
It's hard to say,
Yeah. It could be the case, right?
Yeah.
And I watched that video and then I was like, this is disappointing because Michael Knowles did the same thing with Eminem last year when Eminem came
Yeah.
out with Houdini.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, these people, they don't know the first thing about the topic. And so their takes are really misinformed. Like, if you are informed about a subject and then decide to not like it, that's one thing. But you're making like irresponsible claims about something that you don't know about. So like
Yeah.
Matt Walsh made the claim that Hayden Christensen is a bad actor because of his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker in The Rise of Skywalker. Any Star Wars fan knows that he played an absolute spot on perfect portrayal of Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy. It's exactly what George Lucas wanted, and that's what the character should be,
Mm.
right? But you don't know that unless you're in the Star Wars realm, right?
Yeah.
Like Hayden Christensen was really short and robotic and kind of emotionless, but like that's who Anakin Skywalker is. He was taken into the Jedi Council as a kid and was told not to feel anything and like let things go and like don't feel certain ways. But Anakin feels a lot. As a kid, he like wants to help people, he loves people, he hates people, right? And
Yeah.
so as you progress through the trilogy, in Revenge of the Sith, he's starting to feel his emotions, and that's coming out as the dark side, right? And so through the movie, from the beginning to the end, he goes from emotionless to way more emotional in the negative sense, and that's the arc. But you
Mm.
don't know that if you're not a Star Wars fan, right?
Right.
But if you're not a Star Wars fan, don't make a video about it. So anyway, so I was upset. And then I started listening to our Hormozy podcast. And he was talking about, the story of his mother, how he did a psychology like essay on like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and he realized that his mom wasn't treated well growing up, and that's why she's kind of insufferable today, right?
Yeah.
He's got this quote. This is our dial-in quote. We'll wrap it up. Um, it is, I believe that you cannot both hate someone and understand them at the same time. And then I realized by understanding Alinka's position, all she's seen is negative stuff. and she's seen enough negative stuff to feel that she understands the situation when she doesn't. Same thing with Joel, enough to make an assumption. And same thing with Matt Walsh, in that he watched the movie, and so what else is there to know? And it's really important, and Hermosia highlights this, in not only should you understand someone else's position before you hate them, right?
Yeah.
Or in lieu of you hating them, but also you should recognize that in all of your positions, kind of understand what you don't know. And so my
Yeah.
second dial-in quote is the Chris Williamson, resist the desire to have an opinion on everything. Your expertise is narrower than you think, and the world needs more signal, not more noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as a kind of last add-on to that, I've increasingly, as I've listened to more and more podcasts, I realize that I really know very little, and all I can kind of do is conglomerate a set of opinions based on the best knowledge that I have on a very narrow band of topics,
Right.
because I only have so much bandwidth. And even then, there's always more to learn and always more to understand and always more people to talk to. And so I think I increasingly have more and more sympathy for, different people in my life that, struggle to go through the process of understanding and learning different topics, or, understanding complex situations and stuff like that, because I realize I really don't understand much of anything. And,
Right.
I have, opinions about this political issue or that, but, the more I go on, the more I realize that it's really deep. I can't remember what philosopher said this, but there was a philosopher that said, if you understood each side of any given situation completely, you'd never be able to make a conclusion about what's right or wrong. Because there's always that little bit more aspect to learn, or a little bit more here, a little bit more here, right? And I think that's a valuable to keep in mind when, in any of the given situations that you've discussed as well. So I guess a little Dial-In 2.0 bonus.
Cool.
But
Let's
that's
get out of here. We're about to
yeah.
get kicked out.
Have a great week. We'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.